95.3 WBCK now presents Coach's Corner, live from Lakeview Ford. For over 6 decades, this has been your number one source for all local sports information. Coach's Corner is proudly presented by Lakeview Ford, where community matters. Now, here's your host, Bill Broderick.
This is Bill Broderick, sports editor of the Battle Creek Enquirer, in the big chair once again on WBCK for another week of Coach's Corner. Coming to you live from downtown Battle Creek at Lakeview Ford, Lincoln on the Motor Mile. For more than 60 years, Coach's Corner has been talking to the city high school coaches about the week in sports, and we will continue to do that as we look ahead to the upcoming week of the high school football season with our first coach of the morning. But first, here is the Lakeview Ford Coach's Corner scoreboard. In the game of the week last night, Marshall ventured over to Harper Creek in one of the best rivalries in the area. Harper Creek came away with a 41-22 win to clinch a share of the Interstate 8 Conference title. It'll be back-to-back titles for the Beavers. Elsewhere in the city, Battle Creek Central lost to St. Joe 37-18. Jackson Northwest beat Penfield 50-35. Lakeview lost to state-ranked Portage Central 58-0. And St. Phil will be in action against Athens later tonight at CW Post Field. Also on Friday in the area, a battle of teams that were in second place in Interstate 8 Conference and hoping to stay in the running. Hastings outlasted Coldwater 40-37. Springport beat Union City 35-34. In the game of the two of the best 8-man football teams in the area, Mendon beat Climax Scots 46-20. It was Colon 38, Bellevue 12, Bronson 44, Reading 0. Galesburg Augusta beat Coloma 46-29. Columbia Central 56, Homer 14. State-ranked Olivet beat Lakewood Lake Odessa 42-14. It was Litchfield 44 to Concha 0. And Stevensville Lakeshore beat Gull Lake 56-41. We will be back with our first Coach of the Morning, Penfield coach Robbie Hatton, after this break on Coach's Corner on WBCK 95.3 FM.
We have whole family.
Mitten Madness. The Cereal City now has a local sports show which they can call their own. Mitten Madness is a local sports show that takes in the national scene with a focus on our Michigan favorites such as the Spartans, Wolverines, Lions, and Tigers.
Lions and Tigers, oh my!
Join Dejan Hughes Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. for Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK.
It's a Ford-owned site.
Voices from Battle Creek and Calhoun County.
We are starting a renovation of that building to create the Battle Creek Innovation Hub.
We're still focused on mental health recovery for veterans even today, 100 years later.
We go to small businesses because we love the experience.
Really, I think people ought to look into adoption.
Community Matters, sponsored by Lakeview Ford Lincoln. Saturdays after the 8 o'clock news on WBCK. Episodes anytime at battlecreekpodcast.com.
Coach's Corner on WBCK. Brought to you by Lakeview Ford, where community matters. Now back to the show.
This is Bill Broderick, sports editor of the Battle Creek Enquirer, back here on Coach's Corner. We're here with our first coach of the morning, Robbie Hatton of the Penfield Panthers. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning, Bill.
Penfield found itself in a back-and-forth, high-scoring Interstate 8 Conference affair last night. Jackson Northwest came out ahead 50-35, but plenty of points were put up on the board. Talk us through the early part of that game, Coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Jackson got the ball and they scored, and we responded with a nice long drive. And our first drive, we fell short in the red zone. Had a penalty on third down that kind of pushed us back a little bit. And then they scored again, and we scored. So it ended up being a one-score game for most of the part. And then we tried to score right before halftime, drove all the way down, and we kicked a field goal. Ended up missing it wide left. So we went down 14 at halftime, came out. Second half, we were getting the ball, and we had a fumble on the kick return, and so we got down 3 scores, and then we just kept exchanging scores. It was just one of those things that, we had 8 offensive drives. We scored 5 of them. Our kids, kids battled all night offensively, and defensively, we just couldn't get the big stop that we needed here or there, and we did battle. We didn't make it easy on them to score, but it was definitely a hard fought battle.
Had a big night from your running back Dre Bailey. He had an incredible 336 yards rushing on 26 carries and 3 touchdowns. It looked like the running game was the focus there for Penfield in this game. Calvin Paisons did throw for 137 yards and had 2 touchdown passes, one each to Tommy Wright and Johnny Lake. But talk about Dre Bailey's night, 336 yards, 3 touchdowns. Looked like you guys found something there.
Yeah, Dre's an athlete. We know that. We're kind of banged up at the running back position. We lost our starter, Trevin Strahan, early in the year at the Sturgis game. He's been out for the year. He might be able to suit up this week. We'll see. And then last weekend, or 2 weeks ago against Hastings, we lost Isaiah Eakins-Gray, who was our next running back, who's been having a fantastic year. And Dre just started getting reps again at T. He played, he opened the Harper game for us at T, but he would like to play receiver. That's what he likes to play. But was next man up, and he just said, "Hey, coach, I'll do whatever's needed." And he had a great game. Kudos to our guy up front. They were blocking their tails off, and our game plan coming into this game was actually we thought we were going to be able to throw, all over them, and we started off the game a little bit more spread than normal, and they didn't really adjust to that. And then our next series, we came back to our power look, and they didn't really adjust to that. So we were like, well, if they're not going to adjust to the power or shift to the strength or anything, we're just going to run to our power side, and it worked for us. It was a great night for Dre, but also, Calvin Paisons had a fantastic game. He really moved the sticks for us all night. Big situations. He made the right reads. His stat line is kind of interesting because, I believe he was like 13 of 22, but he had 5 drops. And I mean, drops, not bad throws, drops. So he had a fantastic game for us. And, Northwest kind of had to make sure that, they were playing back a little bit because we were able to throw on them. So I think that's kind of what opened up the run game for us as well.
Defense, Gavin May had 12 tackles to lead you guys, and Derek Beach had 8 stops. And like you were mentioning before, it was the defense stood up at times, but it was a situation where whichever team couldn't keep pace in terms of scoring was going to fall a little bit short, fall behind, because neither defense was doing a ton to stop anybody. But so when you got that fumble late and you weren't able to keep scoring and got a couple scores down, that put you guys in the spot you didn't want to be in. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. We just kept saying all night, hey, we got to keep scoring. Got to keep scoring. We kind of had a feeling it might be a shootout. Jackson Northwest, they run power offense, and, we're not very big, Bill. We have our offensive line and defensive line doesn't have the big dogs up front that these other schools have, and so we got to hunker in, and we got to play physical, and it was one of those things that, hey, our kids play hard. We did get them. We got them on one stop, and they converted a couple 4th downs. It wasn't just hey, 2-3 plays they're scoring every time. They had to convert big on 3rd down and 4th down, and our kids were fighting. It just we came down to we couldn't get a couple key stops, but like I said, our kids battled.
Penfield falls to 2-6. They have a home game left in Week 9 next week to finish up the regular season. You're hosting Parma Western, and you've been saying all season that you've had a young team, and it's all about growth with this program and trying to do what you can this year, but while looking at the future at the very same time. And so, what's going to be the thought process going into this last week of the season, and what do you want to get accomplished?
Yeah, we just want to keep playing football, Bill. We're going to treat this like it's any other game. We just want to keep playing. And, our kids just got to battle. We can't look ahead to anything else. I've told the kids listen, in sports there's winners, there's losers, but it's the lessons you take from the sport that you're playing that's going to shape your life. And, this is another opportunity to do that. Parma's a very good physical football team, and we'll be right there alongside them, and we're going to battle. That's one thing we're going to do is we're going to fight. We're not going to make it easy on anybody.
Hopefully you can get a little healthier going into that last week, get some of those people back, and you have a great home game and a big Penfield crowd to see the boys off for this season against Parma Western in a Interstate 8 conference game. We'll look forward to chatting about that game next week, Coach, when we get back together.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks for calling in, Coach. We'll be back with our next Coach of the Morning after this break on WBCK 95.3 FM.
Coach's Corner on 95.3 WBCK. Proudly brought to you by Lakeview Ford, where community matters. Here's Coach's Corner.
This is Bill Broderick, sports editor of the Battle Creek Enquirer, back here on Coach's Corner. We're here with our next Coach of the Morning, Coach Brett Vernon of the Lakeview Spartans. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning.
Lakeview ran into one of the power teams in this region, not only in the region but in the state. Portage Central ranked number 2 in the state in Division II, loaded with D1 prospects and just big and bad all over the field, and they came away with a 58-0 win over Lakeview. Talk about matching up with Portage Central and how that game kind of went early on.
Really tough to match up with them. They're defensively just a wall. We struggled to get a first down. Anytime we ran the ball, they won the line of scrimmage. Extremely physical team. They do a great job of making sure that they try to force you to run outside, but then they got 2 outside linebackers. They're forcing it back in with speed and physicality, and they're just really good. And offensively, they've fired off the ball. They win the line of scrimmage, and it's a really, really good team.
Portage Central undefeated on the season. Going into that game, you had to make sure that the game wasn't lost before it even started with the kids having their heads down. But did you guys come out firing early and then try to stay in the game for as long as you can? But, it's reality is reality when it gets going. But you liked your effort you guys had?
I think that was the biggest challenge was, we were an 0-7 team going to play a 7-0 team that, one of the top teams in the state, and just trying to get our kids to go out there and play the game. It needs to be played. And I think we accomplished that. I think our kids, and there was no quitting them. We continued the battle through it. Got lopsided early. And kids continued to go out there. Kids continued to kind of do what we asked of them. And so I'm happy on that front that, we didn't just mail it in. And we were down a couple kids from injuries or whatnot. And just everybody that went in there just gave their best effort. So I'm happy with that.
A game like that, like you said, gets away from you a little bit early on, but it's also a game where you get some opportunity to see some other kids and see how they play against good competition. Anything stand out to you in that way to kind of help you as you kind of go forward?
We got a couple fifth quarter kids that we bring up, and been really happy when they've been getting the chance to get into the game as some of their energy that they bring onto the field. Not always best technique sometimes, but they're giving great effort out there, and so I enjoy seeing those kids go out there. And then, like you said, those guys that don't get a ton of playing time, what are they going to do when they get their time to shine? And the effort was there with those guys, and I enjoy watching them to go out there and play hard.
So Lakeview goes into the last week of the season, and they're going to have a home game against Gull Lake team that's also struggling. It's a final game of the year for both teams, and when you're playing a team like that, when there's some opportunities there for Lakeview and a good way to want to end the season on a high note, that's going to be the message this week, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. We're itching for a win. They're itching for a win. They're on, Gull Lake's on the list of longest losing streaks in the state. They've been a while without a win, and we're looking to not get on that list. And so it's going to be two close, pretty evenly matched teams. And again, is who's going to be more physical, who's going to make the plays, that's going to come out on top.
Gull Lake's been able to score some points lately, even though they haven't been coming up with some wins. They have a pretty good quarterback who was all-league last year, and they have some athletes on the outside, and they have a concept where they can score some points. They haven't been stopping too many people on the other side of the ball. But what have you seen from tape early on to say that you want to try to do against Gull Lake to try to stay in the game?
Yeah, from what I've seen, they like to chuck the ball around a little bit. They like to put the ball in the air. And so, I was just going to be key to get some pressure on him, get some guys in his face, and do a great job in the back end. And then offensively, making sure that we're executing and not shooting ourselves in the foot, finishing drives offensively, so that we're putting the ball in the end zone and get some turnovers. Let's find a way, if the ball's in the air, to go get some picks. If the ball's hanging out there loosely, let's get some fumbles and create some turnovers so we get some extra possessions on offense and knock it in the end zone.
And Lakeview wants to get things going on their side. You've had some people that banged up off and on the last couple of weeks. Where do you kind of stand on that front? You've been rotating some quarterbacks here, rotating some guys on the outside into the skill positions. Where do you stand?
Yeah, unfortunately, we were kind of back and forth this week at the quarterback position because the starter that we've had in, Caleb McCune, got sick, and so he ended up being out for Friday. Kind of wishy-washy on whether or not he would be able to play. So Isaiah Jackson, who's played quarterback for us, came into the game. But I'm hopefully that we got everybody ready to go next week for the game against Gull Lake.
And you want to stick to what's been going well for you. I mean, the running game's been going great this year with Wildermuth, getting those hard yards for you. And it's a Gull Lake team that's been giving us some points. So you want to start fast, start early, and have that running game. Open up some things with those guys at the quarterback spot, whoever is playing for you. Talk about the key to starting early against Gull Lake in a game where both teams, have had a tough season. So whoever gets up early maybe can put the other team to bed early.
I think everybody's looking for something good to happen, and the team that has something good happen early on is going to have that edge, as you just said. And we need to be that team. We need that team that can jump up early and hopefully put away a team that's winless as well. So
we'll look forward to talking about that Lakeview Gull Lake game next week. It's going to be the game of the week on WBCK radio Friday night. Getting back to Spartan Stadium to see what's going on over there. And looking forward to talking to you, Coach, next week about that first victory of the season.
Let's do it.
All right. Thanks, Coach. We'll be back with our next Coach of the Morning here on WBCK 95.3 FM after this.
Coach's Corner on WBCK, brought to you by Lakeview Ford, where community matters. Now back to the show.
This is Bill Broderick, sports editor of the Battle Creek Enquirer, back with our next Coach of the Morning, Coach Lauren Granger of the Battle Creek Central Bearcats. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning.
We had Battle Creek Central playing downtown at CW Post Field under the lights with St. Joe coming to town, and it was a back-and-forth game early, and St. Joe came away with a 37-18 win. Battle Creek Central was within 22-18 late in the third quarter. And talk about the early part of the game for the Bearcats and how you guys stood toe-to-toe, and then falling a score behind there in the third quarter and how that kind of slipped away a little bit.
Yeah, one thing about that 22-18 position was we had some missed opportunities on we scored 3 touchdowns and we don't get any of our extra points, and we've got to capitalize on special teams opportunities to get those extra points, because realistically, if we went for 2 for a couple of those, and had we gotten those, we could have had the lead just based on that. So we have to address some issues that we've got going with special teams in order to put our team in better positions. But, it's 22-18, and we're driving and throw a pass to a wide-open receiver that ends up being bobbled a few times. And Yashua's he's one of our best receivers and catches that pass 99 times out of 100. But that one is the one. And so those types of percentages just seem like they continue to plague us. He catches that ball, it's a touchdown. Who knows? We probably win the game. But, instead, 2 plays later, we're punting, and they turned that one into a score in the fourth quarter. And really, that was it. Their last touchdown, they scored with a minute to go in the game, when they really could have just taken a knee and it would have been over. But kids fought really hard. I was really proud of their effort last night. St. Joe's obviously a good team. Got off to a rough start this year. Had their record matched ours at 4-3, but it just took them a couple weeks to put some things together. they had some early injuries in the season. They lost their starting quarterback, and then, they just were putting some things together for a couple weeks. But now they're really rolling. They've got a real explosive offense. Their rushing attack is threatening to break school records, and they're an explosive offensive team. So we expected to have to defend that. They got a couple of explosive plays on us in the first half. A couple of their touchdowns were just big plays that we had breakdowns on our defense, and they found it. And so, but really proud of the effort the kids gave, and really disappointed that we couldn't come out on the winning end of it for our seniors, their last home game, and everything they've given to the program and to us, as coaches. They played hard enough to win. They really played well enough to win. We had some really key penalties on drives that really stalled drives. As hard a time as we had stopping them, they kind of had a hard time stopping us too. We really just stopped ourselves too many times. So
you matched them like we said. You matched them early, score for score, and what was going well for you early? Because it looked like you had to go lean a little bit more on the running game than you've had to because due to injury, but that running game seemed to be working early.
Yeah, Mubarak Jabril, our sophomore running back, was finding seams early. Our offensive line was doing an amazing job with their blocks. And to be honest, we were running the same play over and over again, really. I mean, we'd run it twice, get away from it, go back to it. That's the kind of offense we want to be. And we've been working toward being able to establish that all season long. Did a great job of it in that game last night, really. And so had a lot of success running the ball. They made some changes defensively that kind of forced us to do some things different in the second half. We were still running the ball, just running it to different places, and we threw it a little bit too. RJ had to step in at quarterback because R.J. Gray had to step in at quarterback because Lee Campbell Jr. got a little banged up with his ankle. He's been dealing with an ankle injury. And, R.J. just continues to be put into positions he doesn't expect to be put in and continues to perform under conditions that are not ideal. And he did that last night, too. He was running the ball really strong. And so, Mubarak had the hot hand early on. RJ comes in the game, starts having the hot hand. We just start letting him run with the ball. And so that was, we had a lot of success with him running the ball too. Just, kind of the same blocking schemes, but running to the same places, but different ball carrier. But I'm really proud of the offensive line. They don't get a lot of credit for anything they really do. The fact that we could run the ball the way we did last night, I would say, despite the loss, that's probably the best that our ground game has looked this season.
Well, let's mention some of those guys on the offensive line. Like you said, they don't get a ton of the credit. You're always talking about the guys scoring the touchdowns or getting all the yards. Why don't you throw those guys across from tight end to tight end? Who those guys that kind of stepped up for you last night?
Yeah, Cavelli Fisher plays left tackle. Really, in the beginning of the year, we weren't sure who that spot was going to be. Cavelli stepped up and grabbed it and said, "This is going to be mine," and he's established himself. Nobody's really replaced him all season long. Carter Jeffries is next to him. He's our left guard. And Carter's probably overall our best offensive lineman, really. I think he's just got that extra level of meanness in him. He's not a mean kid. He's a great kid. But on the field, you want to be a little mean, especially when you're playing on the offensive line. Does a great job pulling, does a great job overall in pass protection. I would say, skill set wise, he's our best lineman. Nathan Kretzinger's been injured. He's missed a few games for a knee injury this year, but actually got to play last night. He got cleared by the doctors. He struggled a little bit with his knee, but he plays center along with Trayvon Haruna-Mega, and those two guys are both pretty good. Even when Nate got injured, he was our starting center, but even when he got injured, Trayvon came in, and there really wasn't much of a drop-off there. That whole group is just really tight-knit, and does a great job. The only senior on that offensive line is Corey Wells. He's our right guard, and he's just a warrior. I told him a year ago, I said, you're just going to have a great senior year. I just can tell. And he is having a great senior year. He and Carter are just really good players. And then Marcus Shaija plays right tackle right now, and he's kind of bounced back and forth between the defense and the offense. And, the latchkey kid, he really would love to be on the starting defense, but we had to steal him. We had to take him over to the offensive side, and so he's really embraced that role, though, and done a great job with it, and been very unselfish in that transition, because he would really love to be starting on the defensive line, and he's good enough to do that, but we needed him on the offense.
Randall Gray had 114 yards rushing from that quarterback spot on 23 carries. Broderick Jabril had 67 yards rushing and added a touchdown. And Gray also had a touchdown and a touchdown pass to Braylon McCoy. And like I said, the game slipped away a little bit early. But so you guys go on the road for week 9, and still a lot to play for. The Battle Creek Central is going at Mattawan, and at 4-4, if you guys can get that victory at Mattawan, you'll have a chance to watch Selection Sunday and see if your name pops up. You're not going to be assured of that, but at 5-4 with your schedule, there's an outside chance for that. So that has to be the conversation this week, right, for the team, right?
Yeah, that'll be part of it, but more importantly, we want to finish how we started. We felt like we started the season on a high note. We'd like to finish it on one. Our seniors, there's not very many of them, but they've really done a great job this year, and we'd like to send them home, I'll say. If that's the end of our season, we'd like to send them home with a victory. They deserve it. For us, there's a big difference between 5-4 and 4-5.
Right.
And from a program development perspective, we've taken our lumps the last 2 years, and we feel like we're turning a corner right now. But the focus and the energy that you get from the kids and off-season training, I think, has a lot to do with how you end your season. And so our goal is going to be to create excitement and energy in Week 9, come away with a victory, and hopefully use that as a platform to catapult us through the off-season and into a great season for next year. So this victory is very important to us for a lot of reasons. The playoffs is really just one of them, and it's kind of minor at this point. We just want to make sure that playoffs or no playoffs, that we make a statement in our own conference and in our own minds that we've turned a corner.
That'll be a big game to talk about next week. Battle Creek Central goes on the road at Mattawan, and hopefully we can talk about that 5-4 season next week when we get back together, Coach. Thanks for coming in.
Yep, thank you.
We'll be back with a short break after this break on WBCK 95.3 FM after this.
The Coach's Corner on 95.3 WBCK. Proudly brought to you by Lakeview Ford, where community matters. Here's Coach's Corner.
This is Bill Broderick, sports editor of the Battle Creek Enquirer, back here on Coach's Corner. We're looking forward to a night game tonight on Saturday night downtown at CW Post Field. St. Phil is playing Athens as the Fighting Tigers get back on the field. They will take center stage, like I said, downtown. Coach Bennett and the Tigers are getting ready for that game tonight, so they're not going to join us this morning. But come back next week, and we'll talk all about that St. Phil-Athens game, and looking forward to the St. Phil versus Burr Oak game in Week 9. We'll be back with our last Coach of the Morning after this break, the league championship coach, Mason Converse of the Harper Creek Beavers, right after this on WBCK 95.3 FM.
Coach's Corner on WBCK, brought to you by Lakeview Ford, where community matters. Now back to the show.
This is Bill Broderick, sports editor of the Battle Creek Enquirer, back with our next Coach of the Morning here Coach Mason Converse of the Harper Creek Beavers, and we should say the Interstate 8 Conference Championship Harper Creek Beavers, as they clinched a share of the conference title for the second year in a row after they beat rival Marshall 41-22 last night at home at Ed Greenman Athletic Complex. Congratulations, Coach.
Good morning, boy. That sounds pretty sweet to hear you say that. Thank you.
Harper Creek found itself in a real battle early on with Marshall, going back and forth, and it was like who was going to blink first when that was happening, and it found itself actually trailing. But Harper Creek kept at it and got the lead, and then had some key stops in the second half to finish that one off. But talk about the grit Harper Creek showed last night in a championship effort.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that it's a rivalry game. You don't need to get amped up for that. And we've talked for years about trying to get the rivalry restored and emotional again. And because in the recent last decade or so, it hasn't been quite the rivalry that it was back in the 90s with Greenman and Hulk. And I think it's come a long ways, and Marshall fans showed up last night. Harper Creek fans showed up, and for us to have the kind of win last week that we did against Hastings, we're being down in the second half and having to come back and give that kind of a gut check effort to beat a team that has really done a great job in the I-8 over the past few years. And for us to do that, I was worried about a little bit of an emotional letdown, not a letdown in terms of overlooking Marshall, because it's Marshall, it's a rival. But it's hard for high school kids, or anybody for that matter, to play at their top level every single week, and that's the challenge as a coach, is to get them to play at the level that you need them to win. And sometimes you got to win some games when you're not playing your best. And we knew Marshall would play their best last night. They haven't had the kind of season they've wanted to. They've got tremendous talent over there, and when we looked at them at the beginning of the year, we thought that their record would show a little different. But at the same time, we looked and said, hey, they're only a few touchdowns away from being a 6-1 team. So we knew it was going to be a battle. And for us to gut it out like we did last night, and with them coming out on fire and to match their energy, that gutsy, gritty, that's what I would call it. And again, this is our 17th league title. It's only the 5th time in school history we've gone back-to-back league titles, so it's pretty special. It's not an easy thing to do.
I imagine that post-game celebration in the locker room was fun also, and that's what you want to cherish those times. You don't ever want to take those championships for granted, and you want to take a moment to enjoy that and show the kids that all their hard work has been worth it. Yeah,
the longer I go in this, the more I realize you do have to enjoy it, because it goes pretty fast, and they are special. You don't get a lot of them, and again, for us, we were down. I think you said earlier we were down 16-7 in the second quarter. And they had some good momentum going right there. And for us to come back and finish the half like we did, we had to adjust. And we did, both offensively and defensively. We had to adjust. Our offensive staff did a great job of adjusting throughout the game. It's a chess match with what defenses are going to give us. And so it's just constant moves and counter moves. And we got a big pass to Antoine Westry at the end of the half for a big touchdown and put us down 16-14. And then we were able to get a stop and go in and get another score and be up 20-16 at the half. And for our offense, they had 336 yards of total offense, and we had 8 possessions. Sometimes it felt like we were getting stymied a little bit, but we scored on 6 of the 8. So when I look back at the stats, it's like, okay, no, we did pretty well. It was just a tough physical game. I mean, they were smashing us right in the mouth or punching us right in the mouth, and we had to punch back. And our stats are slightly off. Maddox McCarty, we had him as three passes, and he was actually at least 6 of 6 on his throws, 2 touchdowns, 1 to Westry, 1 to Logan Converse. He was big scrambling last night. Almost put a touchdown at the end of the first half. That was a pretty exciting play where he scrambled about 70 yards and just came up about a foot short. And Nolan Oakes stepped in. He doesn't start, but he comes in and plays a lot of minutes, and he came in last night and was really slippery out of the backfield. He had a big 73 yards for us as well, too. And so offensively, it was a total team effort, and they did a tremendous job.
Yeah, like we were talking about, Marshall was matching you and back and forth, and it seemed like if anytime Harper Creek had to punt, which was, like you said, you only had 2 possessions where you didn't score, but if they had to punt, that was going to open the door just a crack for Marshall, possibly to get back or take the lead and then put you in a bad spot. So when Marshall was, when you were up at halftime and the Marshall came out with that first possession in the second half, it was crucial for you to maybe stop them and make sure that you could take advantage of the momentum, stay ahead by a score, and then stay in front of them. So they got fourth down on their first set of downs, and you came up with a big stop. Keegan Turnbull had a breakup on a slant pass, and that stopped them, and then you guys were able to take the ball, and then Nolan Oaks later scored and took that 27-16 lead. Talk about that play and how that kind of set the tone for the rest of the second half.
Yeah, we knew, again, they're dangerous offensively, and we knew coming into the week that their running back, Olapide, we thought he was one of the top backs we have seen this year. Coming out of last night, I would say he is the top back we've seen last night or all year. And we've played some pretty good running backs throughout the year. So that's a tremendous compliment to him. And then Wado, their quarterback, he is the best scrambling quarterback we've seen all year too. And so we knew that those two guys were the key. We had to stop those guys or contain them, maybe is the right word. Don't let those guys beat us. So that was going to put a lot of pressure on our secondary guys to make plays one-on-one, because in order to stop the run, you have to load the box up a little bit. And so Teagan did a great job. They had some tendencies with formations, and we knew when they split their guys way out like that, they love the double slant pass, and he did a great job breaking on the ball. He knew the down and distance, and we've practiced situational football quite a bit this year, and just, again, a 3-year starter, tremendously intelligent player, and he made a great heads up play right there, knowing that, breaking on the ball, knowing they had to get the first down. So that was terrific.
And then you took advantage of that, and you were up 34-22. But Marshall stayed in it, and a score there puts them within a score, and you never know what's going to happen. They get one more stop, and then they're back in it. So they had another fourth down, and they went for a pass on a 4th and 8, and Levy Carr came up with a big interception to stop that, and that really put it to bed at that point. You had that 34-22 lead with 7 minutes left, and another big defensive stop for the Beavers.
Yeah, Levi's interception was just another great heads-up play. Again, our kids are really smart football players this year, and they understood the situation, the down and distance. They knew we were bringing pressure, so he had to get the ball off in a hurry so they can play everything coming forward. And Levi was in perfect position to make that play. And I told you that we scored on 6 of our 8 possessions. Defensively, at times it felt like we were reeling a little bit because they were moving the ball on us, but they had 9 possessions and only scored on 3. And so that's huge for us. And when we look at our stats of our defense this year, every team except for Parma scored 8 and their season low was 6. But every other team we've held to a season low in terms of points. And Marshall's been putting up a lot of points this year because they're extremely talented, and so it was a huge effort from our defense. I mean, Antoine Westry had 10 tackles, Cam Converse, Teagan Turnbull, Josh Bodie had 9, and then Cam had a big sack that was huge in the second half for us. Cohen Deskins had 8 tackles. Brock Hibbs and Levi Carr, Cohen Sluchter all had 5. So again, the guys are swarming around, they're flying and playing fast, and we're making sound tackles, and that makes a difference. And they did. Lapide did get outside of us a few times, but it's tough to simulate his kind of speed and strength in practice because he's a special running back.
Yeah, Lapide, to give him credit, he scored on the first snap of the game on an 80-yard touchdown run, and you thought that was going to be more of the same, but you guys really shut them down because Lapide and Wado usually get a ton of yards on the ground, running a little bit of an option, and you were able to keep them under wraps and then force them to do some things that they didn't want to. So that Harbor Creek defense was big last night, and credit to your offense also for keeping it going and getting the big points, and that gives you the undefeated record in the division, and that puts you guys at winning back-to-back, and right now you're sharing the title theoretically, mathematically, with one more win next week against Jackson Northwest. You have it all by yourself. Talk about this week and how that's going to be a big goal for you guys.
So Hastings was able to just nip Coldwater last night, is my understanding, and so they're in second place right now, in sole possession of second place. And if we stub our toe next week, we would share it with them. And we've talked a lot that we don't want to share it. We want to have it outright. And I don't know that if that necessarily matters 10, 20 years down the road. You see the number on the banner, it doesn't matter. But right now it matters, and that's going to be what we focus on this week as we get ready for playoffs. Is we don't want to share the title with anybody. We want it all to ourselves, and maybe that sounds selfish, but that's what we've worked so hard for. So that'll be the rally cry this week. We're not going to share it. We want to win it outright.
And winning back-to-back titles, this says a lot for what you guys are doing right now as a program. Also, you've talked about You have the younger kids in the program that have been coming up, and it's just a feeder system right now that's really working well for Harper Creek, and that really shows when you can have back-to-back winning seasons like this. And you had a senior-laden team last year, especially on the offensive line, and a lot of key skill players were seniors, and then you guys just turn the page, and you're back right where you were from last year. So talk about how good that feels as a coach when you see that.
I mean, it is in terms of the vision for the program and where we want to go. We do believe that we should be able to just reload for the most part every year. And now are we going to be able to have a back-to-back league titles every year? Of course not. But it starts with development, and it starts with getting kids out to play and having them be excited about playing football. And I'll give our JV coaching staff and our freshman coaching staff credit. Larry Quick and his staff, and Jason Miller and their staff. I mean, they're terrific at playing players, helping to develop kids, developing them in the right way to both be, good football players, but also high character young men. And those are the kinds of people we want in our program, is the high character young men who care about each other and aren't just in it for themselves. And the little things that we do to take care of that and to make that happen day in and day out throughout the staff, we're in complete unison with that, and that's making a big difference. And then it goes down to our junior football with Corey Ledbetter and what he's done and what he is doing with the feeder system, and we work so well together. And it's a lot of fun right now, and to be in the Harper Creek community, it's pretty special.
We have a couple of minutes left here, but Jackson Northwest is the big game in front of us, and talking about going on the road and playing a Jackson Northwest team, and you have to get your heads back in the game after a couple of big emotional games. Yeah, again, Jackson Northwest is a team that's dangerous. They are traditionally haven't had great success in the conference, and they're a much improved team. They have talent, and they've got size, and they love to play power football. So they don't run the T, they run the power I. So there's not necessarily a big difference. They've got a tailback who's quick and elusive, and they've got big guys up front to block for them. So they're on a high last night after beating Penfield, and they would love nothing more than to really make their season by beating the league champs. So it's a tough place to play, because they always have a great environment, and we're going to have to match their energy as well too. It never gets any easier. It's just like, I guess it's playoff football. It is playoff football, and we might be talking about looking ahead to the playoffs, or we will be talking about looking ahead to the playoffs next week when we talk to Harper Creek, but we'll talk about hopefully a conference championship that you have all to yourselves with a win over Jackson Northwest and Interstate 8. Congrats, Coach, on the championship, and we'll talk next week. Thanks, Bill. We'll be back next week on Coach's Corner on Saturday on WBCK 95.3 FM.